everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Fit Till 30. I am your host, Tudor, and I'd like to thank you for being here for listening to this. I think for many of you are wondering, right, what is the purpose of this show? What on earth is he talking about? What are we going to find out from yet another podcast made after the pandemic? Well, to be honest, I wanted to start this podcast to speak a bit about my personal journey in regards to weight. Now, obviously, weight is a very sensible subject for a lot of people, and I think I'm not the only one who has struggled with weight on and off for a long time. It's easy, for example, to blame, again, the pandemic, but I think, at least in my case, obesity has been an issue on and off for about 10 years now. I maybe have a typical story of being a quite normal weighted person during most of my childhood and teenage years. But once I arrived at college and had the opportunity to experience a lot more, let's say, unhealthy food like fast food, a lot of, instant meals and other such things, I started to slowly gain in weight and realized at a certain point that I am now officially obese. Now, obviously, this did not happen overnight, but when you're again at the college age, you're not paying attention to a lot of these things, right? You just want to blend in at college. You want to experience as many things as possible. You're young. You can do whatever you want. Nothing can hurt you. And as such, it just crossed my mind at some point that, hey, maybe I'm starting to gain weight. Maybe this is not healthy. But these were glanced aside, right? Like, we have bigger things to focus on. You don't want to really start, eating healthy or taking care of yourself. And that continued for a long time. And after I also started to work, it was also, again, pushed aside with concerns like, I need to earn my own money. I need to make a good impression at work. I need to get promoted or change jobs if needed. And so on and so forth. And I think my wake-up call was last May. As we record this podcast, it's July 2021, by the way. But in May of 2020, I think it was when I truly realized that I had reached an utterly unsustainable long-term weight. Because that's when I realized that this is not good. Like, I'm starting to feel like an old person. I'm starting to have all kinds of aches that aren't really common for my age. I simply have fatigue doing most ordinary things around the house. It became a literal chore picking up the trash and taking it to the trash bin, and so on. And I think that's when I started really looking at my weight, really looking at what I eat and realizing that I did a lot of things wrong. And one thing that most people don't realize, right, is that actually to obtain an unhealthy weight, it's not as difficult as you might believe. Because in the end, you just need to eat a lot at some point. And after that, you can eat normally, so to speak, and you will still retain that extra weight that you gained. Of course, metabolically speaking, it's not perfectly true, like a person that has 50 kilograms against, say, a person that has 100 kilograms. Obviously, there's going to be a higher daily calorie intake needed. But it's not a literal doubling. So in that case, for example, using the same example, a person that has 50 kilograms could just eat quite a lot for 1 year and reach 100 kilograms. And then they might reduce their calorie intake. Like in my case, they might realize that they're at an unhealthy weight and they need to lose it. But they might realize that it's just not just enough to eat normally now. You obviously have to undereat for a while to actually lose weight effectively. So I believe it is a lot harder than it sounds. Plus, unlike maybe most of the, let's say, classical addictions, right? Like I can refer to things like cigarettes, alcohol, caffeine. A lot of people ignore caffeine, but from my point of view, that's just one drug like the others. So unlike other addictions, right? Eating, especially eating in excess, is not something that you can simply quit cold turkey. mainly because we obviously need to eat to survive, first of all. So even when you think that you can try to just not eat for a while, obviously you will end up being hungry. And of course, people have found a number of unhealthy ways of dealing with this. And that also goes into things like anorexia and bulimia, which is not, fortunately, the case here. But in my case, I just realized that I need to change something in my life. And I think after May of last year, I started monitoring my weight weekly. I started to eat less, and it was somewhat successful for a while. But reality soon kicked in, and in my case at least, it was quite a lack of motivation, a lot of changes at work as well. And after about 3 months of sustained weight loss, I started putting back a lot of the weight that I had managed to shed off. And of course, fortunately, that happened over a much longer period than the weight loss. So I find myself today on the 29th birthday that I am again back at an extremely unhealthy weight. And I realized for myself at least that I need to do something much more drastic if I want to induce any kind of long-term change. And that's when I realized that, wait a second, I have 1 year left until I reach that mythical 30 years age. That's a sobering thought. And I know that there's a lot of myths and tropes related to people reaching 30 years, right? That's when maybe a lot of people will have kind of a midlife crisis. They might reevaluate their current jobs, their current relationships. But I think in my case, I'm seeing it more as I'm starting to realize, right, that my 20s will be coming to an end. And after I reach 30, I just think that it's going to become harder and harder to change something related to my general fitness level. So for me, it was the realization that this is perhaps the last year where I can actually try to take drastic measures in relation with my weight and still expect, let's say, drastic results. So that's why I started this, because I feel like accountability is a very powerful thing. And if I expose this to an audience, however large or small, this is something that will enable me to actually keep myself accountable at all times. Try to ensure that I am trying to do the best that I can do. And if nothing else, at least the shame of admitting to random people on the internet that things aren't going great and that I actually need to make some changes. I feel this is something that will help me immensely. And honestly, if this helps any of you who are listening to maybe sound alarm for yourselves if you're in a similar situation, or if you're just doing something more tame and just want to do a change in your life and you feel like, well, I mean, it sounds difficult. I don't know if I'm capable of doing this. I know it sounds very cheesy, but trust me, you already have everything that you need in you already. Like, I truly believe that we all have the capability of doing real changes in our lives. And whilst a lot of the times we are afraid and we feel that we are not ready and we feel that it's not possible, we can and we should do the changes that we feel will change our life for the better. At least that is what I think I'm trying to do with this. In other words, I think that this podcast is a chance for you to hear how a weight loss journey sounds for someone like me. I hope that if you have any questions, I might be able to answer them and we can analyze these together in future episodes. Obviously, as this is the first one, I think that I'll try to now focus just a bit on what I am going to have available at all times. So if you will check the episode description, you'll see that there's a link where I've posted basically my progress so far. So basically all of the measurements I've done of my weight since May of 2020 until now. And obviously I will maintain this until we reach the fabled 30 years mark. I have there quite an extensive raw data set and some graphs to go together with it. And obviously, you will also find an email address. So if you have any suggestions about what I could discuss in this podcast, except for my musings, and if you also have anything you want to ask, like perhaps you are in a similar situation and you're curious what I am doing or what are known things, or if you simply want to ask something like, is this diet appropriate for me, or is this something that I can do, I am more than happy to answer to the limit of my capabilities, and where I don't have the knowledge necessary, I'll try to document myself and let you know as well. I think that should be it for an intro episode. I'm sorry if it sounds quite rambly. It is indeed my first podcast and my first episode of a podcast, so go easy on me if you can. If not, perfectly understandable. I won't hold it against you. Thank you very much. Hope you have a lovely day, and I look forward to hearing you next time. Cheerio.